doing a tag team tonight. So I'm actually with Information Services, but brought our some representatives from our Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. So they are accredited, and I don't want to give their whole presentation away, but an accredited emergency management agency. So they are top notch in preparing for and responding to events. So usually that's hurricanes and floods and those type of things. When the city parish really started getting into cybersecurity, my group, IS, our IT, the technology side, we knew we had the smarts on the cyber, how we needed to combat the cyber side. Where we really weren't strong at was the planning and the preparation. So that's why we partnered with MOSEP, because they're top notch in that area. So we kind of tag team when y'all reached out to me to do the cyber event. I know I was here last month for open data and such, and I appreciate y'all inviting us back. But I decided to ask MOSEP to come in and give y'all just some emergency preparedness information first, and then I'll follow up with the cybersecurity side. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I am Kelly McGaha. I'm the Assistant Director with Homeland Security. It's very nice. Darcy and I were actually here a couple of years ago with Eric. So it is nice to be back. Thank you for having us. Especially in this yucky weather that we got going on. So as Eric mentioned, we are the Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness.
Ridges. You want to get the lights? It's better without the lights.
That's completely up to y'all.
I mean, can everybody see?
Yeah.
So as Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, we're really a coordinating agency. So we work very closely with public safety, the Department of Public Works, Information Services, but our role is really to coordinate during disasters. And in order to do so during disasters, we have to have that working relationship with all of our partners before the storm, what we call our blue sky days, right? So our office provides the citizens with a comprehensive, integrated, and coordinated public safety program. And this helps us ensure that natural and man-made disasters are all taken care of, and we have a plan in place going forward. So what do we really do? I always use the example of a dog chasing its tail. It's a never-ending cycle. So in emergency management, our 5 goals are to prepare for, prevent from, mitigate the risk of, respond to, and recover from any and all disasters here in East Baton Rouge Parish. So are all of you from East Baton Rouge Parish? Or yeah? Okay, so if you weren't, I just wanted to tell you that we are the office for each parish. All 64 parishes have an office of emergency preparedness. Some of the offices, of course, are bigger than others based off of population and size for the parish. But imagine that we have about 470,000 residents here in East Baton Rouge Parish. Well, there's a whole 7 emergency managers over at MOSEP. So we have a tiny team, but we are tiny and mighty, and we get the job done. So just know for all of our residents, somebody's always got your back. We're always on call, and we're available 24/7. So this is kind of an overview of our little small team. A fun fact about us: in 2020, our general fund, like city parish operating budget, was $819,000. So based off of the census population, that's only $1.79 a person investment per resident that it takes to fund our office. So with the additional funding, we get a lot of grant opportunities that come into our office, some for Homeland Security type funding that we're able to use for cybersecurity projects or enhancing our critical infrastructure. But a lot of it has to do with like hazard mitigation directly related to drainage and flooding and that kind of thing. So with that additional funding that we get in, it's a $410 return on investment per citizen in the parish. So, given that you all live here, you probably are aware of a lot of these community characteristics, but these are some of the things that we actually have to prepare for here in EBR. So, of course, we have all 4 municipalities. So we have the city of Central, Baker, and Zachary, and then there's Baton Rouge and our unincorporated areas. So our boss, Mayor President Sharon Weston Broom, of course, is the mayor president for our city of Baton Rouge, but she's also in charge of those unincorporated areas within the parish, whereas our office is in charge of the whole parish. So we have 2 major universities and a community college. We work really closely with our education partners because in especially times like tonight or today when we had the rain event that really didn't rain. We like to pay close attention and do a lot of information sharing with the education partners to keep the children safe, because sometimes they have concerns about the school buses, and if there's a prediction of high wind forecasts or things like that, as it relates to the community, that would affect drive time and things like that for our citizens. What else? Of course, in the state capital, we've got the major airport, and as I mentioned, about 470,000 for our population now. But given that we have over 2,500 first responders within the city parish as well, and that makes up just the city parish agencies of the Baton Rouge Police Department, Baton Rouge Fire Department, and emergency medical services. So what we do and what we kind of like to, our message that we stick with is Red Stick Ready. And you may have heard Mayor Broom, announce that messaging during disasters or sometimes on our Blue Sky days. But our Red Stick Ready campaign is a public outreach campaign to encourage personal preparedness. So after Katrina, there was a lot of gaps in communications that of course could have been better. And we took that, the lessons learned from that, and we said, how can we communicate what we know to our citizens a little bit better? So of course, here in Baton Rouge with, French for Red Stick, we put that together, and our campaign has gone nationwide. We're nationally recognized. We've won a couple of awards for it, but we really pride ourselves on it because it's a message that we like to push and obtain information too, of course, but just so our citizens have that trusted source and the unified messaging in the time of an emergency. So there's 4 easy steps, and we also brought some emergency planning guides and a couple of little treats with us. So the 4 easy steps to stay Red Stick Ready. It's as simple as staying informed, have a way to receive emergency notifications. Keeping in touch with your local weather stations or even the media, just knowing what's going on in the environment, your community, the specific neighborhoods, and making an emergency plan, ensuring that you know what you're going to do in the time of a disaster. The Mr. Charles that lives next door, and he may need some special assistance, checking on him and ensuring that he knows how he's going to contact his family or where you would go if you needed to leave your home, things like that, ensuring that your insurance plans are up to date. And then gathering supplies for a disaster kit. We always encourage everyone to have at least a 3-day water supply on hand at all times and food for the first 72 hours. And that is based off of each individual in your home. So it's always a good idea, of course, to stock the pantry and have your canned goods, but don't forget about that water and simple things like personal hygiene items, cash. That's a big one here lately. Everything is technology. And of course, when we lose power, we sometimes lose the ATM machines, but we still have to live. So having a little spare cash on hand is a good idea. Medication refills before the time of the disaster in case the pharmacies have to close, and things such as that. And we always say, don't forget your pets, right? Everybody has that pet and favorite, bring their toys and bring the kids' blanket too. So, And then the last thing is to use the buddy system. The buddy system is actually a concept that we came up with a few years ago, and we were actually able to trademark it because it has been a best practice here in East Baton Rouge Parish. But the buddy system encourages our community to check on your neighbors. Ensure that you know if there's any special needs in your neighborhood, or if there's a transportation gap, maybe. You know, if they live alone and they maybe don't know what an emergency plan is, or they're not prepared with water and meals. Just reaching out and having that community readiness system. So some of the hazards that we sometimes face, of course, these include cyber attacks. I've said natural and man-made disasters. Our office handles both. Of course, the very popular hurricanes and flooding that we always deal with here in East Baton Rouge Parish. But most recently, the pandemic and severe weather. And then, of course, you remember in 21, I think it was, that we had the really bad winter weather, and it was kind of a rude awakening for a lot of us. But we made it through. So in emergency planning, this is what Eric mentioned earlier when he said his team is able to identify what we need to do if there's cyber issues or computer issues. My boss always tells him that if it plugs into the wall, he's coming to Eric to complain about it. So at our office, we try to maintain the plans for all of those types of hazards, whether it be the man-made or natural. We have what we call an emergency operations plan, and that's for the entire parish. And it says, it has kind of a play-by-play book of what we do in the time of a disaster for all hazards, with resources to our public safety partners. And it outlines how our emergency operations center will operate. So our emergency operations center, which we call the EOC, is actually located on Harding Boulevard here in Baton Rouge. We share a facility with the 911 dispatchers. They're on the bottom floor and we're on the top floor. It's a 24-hour building, critical infrastructure. It's access controlled. It's open to the public, but it also houses other services such as like 311 through the Public Works Division. Then we have a continuity of operations plan. We were actually just talking about that earlier because this is an annual plan that we encourage all of our departments to update. And what this does is ensures their preparedness, but also a continuity of what they would do when their daily services might be interrupted. You know, what are you going to do if the internet goes out? How are you going to continue the plan of government? We still have a responsibility, so we have to have a plan in place for that. And then the hazard mitigation plan, this plan is quite inclusive. It includes all 4 of the East Baton Rouge Parish municipalities, and it identifies natural disasters and some of our goals and objectives of how we will handle those types of emergencies. So that's a quick picture. The one at the top is what we call our executive overwatch, and you see Mayor Broom and some of her department leaders there. Some of those other departments include the public safety partners, public works, information services, those types of main entities. But there's over 50 agencies that are actually represented in our emergency operations center. So during large disasters, you can imagine it's kind of standing room only, and we don't have a choice but to like each other most days because we're working in tight quarters, 24-hour rotations. So the bottom picture is actually of our emergency operations center. And just a fun fact over the past, well, fun facts to know, not so much for the folks that had to experience it, but over the past 2 years, the EOC was activated for 189 days. So out of 2 years, 189 days, we ran 24/7. And of course, that doesn't include 911 because they're all the time 365. That was just for emergency level incidents here in the parish. So a couple of other places that we have designated in our facility is the executive overarch, as I had mentioned, what we call the TIM room. That's the technology incident management room, and that's where the information services, Eric and all of his team work. So they're kind of, out of the way so they can focus and make sure that the entire EOC is running at all times. We have medical incident command, which we also have in a separate room. And what that is our region 2. So East Baton Rouge Parish is considered region 2 with our 8 contiguous parishes around us. And we have a hospital designated regional coordinator that actually activates with us, and they have the information on all of our healthcare systems. They maintain the hospital status, and they're able to directly communicate with our emergency medical services in the time of healthcare. And they were really dominant, of course, during the pandemic, a really good resource for us. We also have 2 training classrooms. We host trainings there for the public safety partners on a day-to-day basis, but it's also our emergency operations center overflow. And then we, of course, have a mobile command post. As Eric mentioned, with our accreditation, we have to have a backup plan. So not only do we have a backup plan for, the electronics in the facility, another server, another generator to maintain power, but we also have what we call our mobile facility. So it's the mobile command post, and it's an RV, if you could imagine. And it has different workstations in it, and then we can provide that connectivity back to our city parish network. And that way our team can be mobile at any time if something were to happen to our facility, and or if we needed to be closer to the actual disaster that was occurring in the field. So what you need to know, in the time of an emergency, we try to do our best to maintain real-time information, especially with like road closures, government office closures. I mentioned we work closely with the schools, so if they have any closures there, and that's brla.gov/emergency. So anytime we have an incident going on in the parish, we activate this page, and it's for citizens to keep up with all of the information that we know. So as those barricade requests are coming into the center, and we're closing roads and such, all of that information is posted here, as well as some other resources that you'll see at the bottom. If you're having a problem in the city of Central, you can call them directly, and we have just quick links on there for information purposes. So one last thing that I will leave you with, and then I'm going to turn it over to Eric. If you are interested in any volunteer opportunities, or if you want to be a part of helping the community in a small role or a large role, we have something called the Community Emergency Response Team. It's our CERT team. And this program actually trains volunteers to prepare for the types of disasters that we face here in East Baton Rouge Parish. Last year, we actually kind of revamped this program and tried to encourage the community again, because it's kind of an old concept, and we were able to train and prepare 75 volunteers here in East Baton Rouge Parish. Now, of course, you train and you prepare, and then in the time of the disaster, not everyone is able to make it and actually volunteer their time, and that's fine. What we really get out of this is when you come through the training with us and you learn all of the things that you need to know in order to help the community, whether you show up to volunteer at the end of the day or not, at least now you have that information and that knowledge of how you need to prepare better for an emergency. So if you'd like more information on that program, you can email us. All of our email addresses are on the city parish website, of course, but it's mosep@brla.gov, and that goes to our whole team. So with that being said, do you all have any questions? Yes, sir. That was quick.
Yes, what is the fate of your organization and your EOC if there was a statewide emergency like a hurricane or something like that? What do you cooperate with some other EOC, or do you
Yes,
become the main EOC?
So we are actually fortunate that the state EOC is actually here in East Baton Rouge Parish as well. So the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, or GOSEP, that you'll hear the governor talk about on television, they are the same concept as us, except on the state level. So it depends on where the effects of the hurricane would be. Of course, if we're in that cone of error per se, we're going to activate the EOC here. But we have a direct communication with them, of course, via phone and email type communication, but we use a software system called Web EOC. And that allows all of our first responders to request resources, and when we exceed our capabilities, we go to the state for assistance. When the state exceeds their capabilities, they go to the federal government for assistance. So we work very closely with them. Yes, sir.
Kelly, how about what we do for Plaquemines Parish and the others that we have the agreements?
Yes, so I mentioned the 2 training classrooms that we have, and we use those, sometimes on a day-to-day basis. But we also have a memorandum of understanding with Plaquemines and Jefferson Parish, I believe it is, as well as the Homa Coast Guard. And I was thinking the maritime something. Anyways, so Plaquemines and Jefferson Parish, in the time of an emergency, if they were to be impacted on the coast, they send their essential personnel up to East Baton Rouge Parish. And they're able to operate and continue their plan of government from our facility. So Eric has them all set up with, of course, the internet connectivity, phone lines, computers, whatever they need. And it's usually like their finance team and their administration. So they can continue to deliver messages to their community and maintain operations for their citizens. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for listening to me blab. I'm gonna turn it back over to Eric now, and he'll know how to get us off of this.
You wasn't ain't blabbing, it's lots of good information.
Well, good, thank you, thank you.
And you probably have a little handout that'll show us where all those addresses are.
Yes, ma'am, we sure do. And we have some hand sanitizer and some little notebooks and ink pens. And there's also some electronic wipes in there, for your computer screens and things like that. So feel free to get you one and let us know if you have any, if you need any more information.
Yeah, I gave them a heads up that y'all like swag, so they keep the swag at City Parish. So we just had a couple pins, but they bring all kind of stuff. So again, I'm Eric Romero. I'm the Director of Information Services for the City of Baton Rouge and Parish of East Baton Rouge. So why is that not? Because I did not share that one, sorry. Go. All right, so kind of stumbled through speeches and what I'm not the best speaker. I've been in IT been with the city now almost next week, I think 28, 29 years. Started out in the basement doing COBOL programming, worked my way up and the director now. So IT folks, usually we're not the best at public speaking. So not the best at public speaking, and I hate talking about cyber. So you may ask, why is this guy that's not good at public speaking and doesn't like to talk about cyber here to talk to us about cyber? Because I'm very passionate about it. I live it every day. I can tell you that the threats are real and the threats are nonstop. It is very difficult for us to stay on top of it with the small staff that we have. We have more than the 7 that Mosep mentioned, but it is still a challenge because it changes daily. So you have to constantly, what we do today may not be good enough of what we do tomorrow. So it's a mindset that we had to adapt to protect the network at City Parish. And what we're really doing is protecting a lot of your resources. So all that data that I mentioned last month that we collect, that's the type of stuff that we're trying to protect. So why it matters. So some of these stats are a little bit outdated. 60 million Americans affected by identity theft. This is, again, it's outdated. By 2021, 6 trillion. I'm sure it's way more than that. Cost of cybercrime, a cyber attack every 39 seconds. The city of Atlanta, they had a ransomware attack in March 2018. I think the first 6 months, they were at $10 million and it kept going up. And last I heard it was $20 million. So what are we doing at City Parish? So we're constantly monitoring our network. We were able to take advantage of some ARPA funds to get some new tools in place to monitor the systems. We're not putting eyes on it. We have services that actually are looking at all the logs of various systems. We're doing a better job of updating all of our software now in our hardware. We have real-time partnerships with local organizations. So all those groups that Kelly mentioned in the parish, we have a good relationship with them. But then we're also have a good relationship with the state as well as federal agencies. We do a bunch of internal education for all of our users. The way I approach cybersecurity, our end users are the first line of defense. Doesn't matter, I can put a new firewall in, I could put new antivirus software in, things will get through. It's the end user. If they don't click that link, if they don't open up that bad email, we don't have a problem. So we do a lot of training. I'm sure they get aggravated with all the training that we do. We have a state mandated annual training, and then we do quarterly training after that. And we do phishing testing. And if you click on a link that we send, then you get even more training. And we're taking a community approach to cybersecurity. So that's why I'm here speaking to you. We started a partnership with the University of Texas, San Antonio. They have a big cybersecurity program, and it's part of the Center for Infrastructure, Security and Assurance. But basically what they're helping us do is to build a blueprint for a community-based cybersecurity program. So what is that? Eric and the mayor and MOSA, we can do our best to make city parish secure. That's not enough. We need the businesses to be secure. We need the utilities to be secure. We need the hospitals to be secure. We need the public to be secure, because we're all in this fight together. And it's incredibly important that everybody is as cyber aware as possible in doing having that good cyber hygiene to protect yourselves, and then if everybody here is protecting themselves and we're protecting ourselves, then the whole community is protected. And that's what we're shooting for. We're in the very early stages. We're working with higher ed to try to get more cyber, graduate more folks to get into the cyber business, because the resources are very limited. We're working with K through 12 to start educating the kids at it. We're putting cell phones and computers in front of kids at an ever younger age. So we need to get them starting to train. If I give an example, when I was growing up, seatbelts weren't required. But during my childhood, at some point, I don't remember when, seatbelts were required. Now, with my kids, they automatically put their seatbelts in when they were in the back seat, when they were in the front seat. It's just because they were taught that and taught that and taught that. I get fussed at if I get in the truck and I back out the driveway with the seatbelt not on, and I'm going to do it. They wanted me to put it on before I even pull out. So we need to start doing that same type of education with cybersecurity, just making them aware, starting young and just gradually building on it. So another way we reach out to the community besides these meetings, we're on social media. So Twitter, Facebook, and Nextdoor. Helen last month mentioned our Tech Tuesday campaign. So 3 weeks of the month is going to be something about data or dashboards or maps or something like that. But 1 week, I think it's the third week of the month, is reserved for a post on cybersecurity. So just little bits of information that we can send y'all's way, just help y'all to be more cyber aware. So phishing. So what's phishing? Not the fishing that I like, casting it out, catching big redfish, me and my son, that's what we like to do in August. But it is a way for a bad guy, cyber bad guy, to get information from you. So they can do it via email. You click a link, you go to a page and it says, hey, you need to reset your password. You're not resetting your password, you're giving the bad guy your password. They may do it by text messages now. I get text messages from Chase Bank. I don't have a Chase account, so I know it's bogus. What's scary though is that I got a text message from neighbors who I do have an account with, but I could tell that it was bogus. So I don't know if they just got lucky on who they picked, or they somehow knew that I had an account there. Phone call. So this is, you may not think of it as cyber, but it is. So somebody calls asking for information and may say your computer's hacked and they need to get into it or something to that effect. It's another way. And then the USB baiting. So that is something that's relatively new. They take a USB key, put some malware on it, viruses and whatnot, and just drop it on the ground. So you coming along, oh, I found a 64 gig USB key, jackpot, plug it in, now your computer's infected. So that's another way that they're getting in. Ways to avoid being phished: never give your personal information and check the source. So if I get an email from my bank, and I can't tell that it's an obvious phishing email, the bank is usually not going to email me and ask me for my password or some critical information. Call the bank. I can tell you the banks, and I'm going to hit on that towards the end. They have some of the best security going right now. So if you ever have a question, call your bank and just confirm that that message is actually coming from them. Be wary of exe attachments. So those are executables. Don't be fooled just because the email has a logo on it. And I'm going to show an example of that in a second. Be cautious of urgency. So if it's an email that says, hey, you need to do this right away, be careful of that. And of course, watch for unusual phrases or grammar. So in the old days, 5 or 10 years ago, we all got the emails from the Nigerian prince that wanted to give us $5 million, right? It was broken English. It was obvious a fake. So those are easy to tell. Now, not so much. So here's an example of an Amazon email. So I'm gonna hit on the three areas that tell you that it's not an Amazon email. Up at the top, kind of looks like Amazon. I know it's hard to see from back there. It's Amazon Canada.ca. So they're missing the A. So if you just glance at it, your brain may pick up that it's Amazon, but it's not Amazon. Different email address. Dear client. So Amazon is not going to address me as dear client. I'm sure they have my name in their database if I have an account, right? Confirm your identity, click here. Well, this looks like a legit link, but if you hover over it, so if you put your mouse over it, down at the bottom, you're going to see, or maybe right on top of it, it's going to show you what the actual address is. And here it's redirect.whatever. So we know that that's not a legitimate Amazon link. So it's those type of things. Besides those three things, everything else looks legit. So that's why you have to be extremely hyper vigilant when you're looking at some of those emails that seem to be suspect. Passwords. We hate passwords, right? How are they hacked? People can guess them. If you have an easy password, you're using your dog's name, your cat's name, your kid's name. Spidering is when they search through social media. So you put all kind of information on social media. Here's my dog, here's my cat. So they're going to put that into a database and then kind of brute force attack it. Wi-Fi monitoring. So if you connect to Wi-Fi that's at McDonald's, it's not secure and somebody else is on that Wi-Fi, they can sniff your network and possibly pull it out that way. And then phishing we talked about. At least 8 characters, upper and lower numbers, special characters. They're actually saying now it should be 12 characters. So we have gotten away from passwords, and what the recommendation is a phrase. So it's easier to remember a phrase. This one that's up here is gobbledygook, epoxy hippo double bread. Listen, what I did for one of my passwords that is no longer valid, so don't bother. We have a camp on Grand Isle, my family does, and it had some damage from Ida, and it was taking forever for me to get things together to get it fixed. So my password was fix the damn camp 2022 exclamation mark, something like that. So it was long. It was a phrase. It's not a phrase that anybody else is, unless you live on Grand Isle, was probably thinking about. So it's another way to come up with a kind of lengthy password. Use a phrase. 2-step verification is getting big now. That's multi-factor authentication. So that's when you click on a link, go to a website, you put your username and password in, but they want to take it a step further. They want to text you a code, or maybe you have an app on your phone that they ask that you provide the number that the app is showing you. That's a lot of folks, and even at City Parish, we're about to implement some MFA. That's what everybody is moving towards. It's just a second level of security. Don't use old passwords or reuse passwords. Change your passwords. We have a 90-day password policy, which drives our users crazy. Because they have to change it every 90 days. It has to be 8 characters up and lower and special character and numbers and whatever else. So it's always difficult for them to remember. So when they have to change their passwords, we spend half of our time unlocking their passwords the next couple of days because they forget what they put.
Guilty.
Yeah. Didn't want to call you out, Cal. But, what the state has said, I think they're requiring passwords to be, or passphrases to be 16 characters, but now they're not forcing their users to change it as often. I think they change it once a year. So it's like the longer you go, the less frequently you have to change it. Don't use passwords, especially if you have like a work password or a banking password. Don't use that password on other areas. So if I have an ESPN account, I'm not going to put my banking password there. My banking password it's only used on the banking site. It's a pain in the butt because you have to manage all of these passwords. You don't want to write them down on a piece of paper and stick it under your keyboard, which some people at City Parish have done. But there are password keepers. There are password keepers that you can sign up for. In most cases, they are very good. They have good encryption around it. With that said, one of the more popular ones did get hacked, so that's always a concern. So you just move that piece of paper that had all your passwords up into the cloud. But it's still with what the cyber community is saying, it's still a better practice to have your passwords there than on a piece of paper somewhere. Mobile devices. So the phones usually have, I left it over there, has a bunch of information on it. If your phone is lost, they may be able to crack into it. If you're connecting your phone again to an unsecured network, if you download or jailbreak your phone and put some bogus app on it, phishing, the same email that you get on your computer, you can get on your phone, and it can have the same bad consequences if you click that link and go to the form and give them your information. Keep your devices secure. So install your Find My Phone app so you can track it down. Only download the apps from the official stores. read the fine print when allowing apps permission. I get that nobody ever does that, but if you read it, you would
Read
probably,
it, and it makes me not even want to sign it.
yes, you want to throw your phone away. It's because they're basically telling you everything that you do is going up there. Suspicious of calls and texts that asking for personal information, so that's the same thing like the emails, and keep the phone updated. Whenever there's an update, there's a reason for it. Keep it updated as much as possible along with the apps. Enable fingerprint or facial recognition, delete sensitive data that's not needed on the device anymore. Lock the phone with a strong password. Again, it's another password. It's make yourself more secure. You're going to increase your inconvenience, but that is the way it needs to be. Disable Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when not in use. Only turn it on when you want to connect to something. Web usage, so if your computer is slow and crashing and pop-ups, you may be compromised. You want to use a good web browser. Don't go to inappropriate or gaming sites. Don't autofill passwords. So again, it's easy to click that little button when Chrome, I use Chrome comes up, put a password in. Hey, you want to save this so you don't have to type it in next time? Yeah, but no. You don't want to do that because you don't want it stored anywhere that can get out there. Always make sure the website, if you're transferring information, is HTTPS, so it's a secure website. Those are some of the more common browsers. Those are safe. They update often. There are other browsers out there. You don't want to click on pop-ups and ads and graphics or unfamiliar links. Downloading files and software from a place that you're not familiar with, visiting websites that aren't from a trustworthy source, and accessing your bank accounts and email when connected to an unsecured network. Again, we're hearing the same things because all of these devices are using the same networks, and we want to use that same hygiene on all of them. Social engineering is when somebody will try to gain access to either your system or to your environment without you knowing about it. So a common example, it's more on the work side, and I'll give an example. We paid somebody to kind of test some of the security we had. He went to the thrift store, bought an Orkin shirt, Orkin pest control shirt, and he was able to get into almost every office in City Hall by just saying, hey, I'm the pest control guy, I need to check what's going on. They let him in, he's walking around, he can look on somebody's computer, he can grab this payroll file that has all the social security numbers on it and such. So that's it's important. You know, we being in Louisiana, we're very trusting and we like to open doors up for everybody. City Hall's doors are secured. We have to actually kind of send messaging out, you know, don't hold that door open up for the next guy if you don't see his badge showing that he should have access. This phishing, piggybacking is when they're walking in to the door with you. Farming is they create a website that looks like a legitimate website, but it's not. It's similar to those emails. Social media, they'll scrape your social media page trying to learn as much as possible from you. It's more of the same. Fully log out, confirm your credentials, watch for clickbait. You know, you win. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So let's talk about physical device security. So the first version of this presentation, we only had this top bar: laptops, desktops, USBs, files, passwords. Just this week, I modified it to include this because now almost everything in our home can be hooked up to the Wi-Fi. So we can have home monitoring, we can have lighting, we can have our TVs, we can have appliances, our microwaves, our toasters. I don't know why they need to be on Wi-Fi, but some of them can be. Robot vacuums, they're all on Wi-Fi. They are all an attack point. So while you may have good cyber hygiene and you have a strong password here on your laptop, you're changing it. How often do you change the password on, your TV or your toaster or your vacuum? And how often do you update the software on those? Usually you don't. You just let it run. It's good. I can turn on the light by pressing a button on my phone. I'm good. Well, if that's on the internet, and it has a vulnerability, then the bad guys can attack that and either gain access to your network or use one of those devices to attack other people. Password protect, lock, permanently delete data. Again, it's the same things over and over again. So found this week. So do y'all see what that is? So that's one of those slide bolts for a door, right? They have a cheat-toe.
Yeah.
So to keep the door closed. So that's the same as username admin, password admin, which is usually your default router path, Wi-Fi password. Here's another one that one of my guys sent me, so a little bit better. Built this heavy duty door, right? Metal door. You can just squeeze through right there. Username admin, password admin. USB hard drives, I mentioned that the USB baiting. If you get a unfamiliar USB, you need to check it out. Make sure you have antivirus software. I don't think I mentioned that yet. A good antivirus software on your computer before you plug anything in. Banking, monitor your accounts, sign up for transaction notifications if your bank does that. Sign up for credit monitoring if they do that. Ensure that the site is real and ensure the emails and messages from the banks are legitimate. Again, if you're unsure, call your bank. They have some of the, as I mentioned, they have some of the best security around. Let's scroll through this. This is what's a cyber attack. So we're talking about protecting your devices and everything. So the different types of attack, viruses and worms, or software that's going to sit on your computer and compromise your computer. Trojan horses is a program that sits on your computer, and at some point it spreads virus software throughout the network. Ransomware is the big one, the big money maker for the cyber criminals right now. It is basically locks, encrypts all the files on your computer and displays a message that says, hey, pay me whatever, 100 Bitcoin to get your files back. 100 Bitcoin, maybe a couple $1,000, something like that. Preventative, this is more for the office. It's about keeping a clean desk, making sure all those personnel files are locked away, secure any physical information that is critical. Don't use the public Wi-Fi. We preach that quite a bit. And that's, I know I ran through it relatively quickly. What I neglected to say at the beginning was that when we get these presentations, I think we're doing a pretty good job at City Parish, but by no means am I a cybersecurity expert. I can't tell you what you need to do to protect your devices because I don't know all your devices. There may be a certain reason why you do one thing that the next person may not do. You may have cameras and network and everything else where the other person may just have a phone. I'm not going to tell you what's the best antivirus software because again, it kind of depends on a lot of things. And price is always important. But just wanted to throw that out.
I was just gonna say, everything it's changing, so I got my auto insurance renewed, is the time when they do the new policy. So I get this package from them before I get the actual bill, and it's telling me the price has gone up quite a bit, and I just talked to my agent, she said it really is just all going up. But it told you, it's another place where you can check your, if you haven't got your credit rating or a copy of all your credit reports, we have the address, you can go look at your credit reports. I started to put that in there. When I put it in there, it was not HTTPS. It was just HTTP. And I'm thinking, why would they send those addresses out?
That's probably old school that they never just changed the address. It was probably on there where it wasn't that big of a concern. But no, that's now, and more than likely, if you put the HTTPS and put the full name, it'll still work. But, and we have some of our literature still has HTTP on it that we need to change, but
But it makes you
yeah,
wanna
no,
stop, you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. And so that's good. If you caught that, that's what you need to do and just be aware that if it doesn't have HTTPS, it's almost not even worth putting that address in.
It's so hard, there's so many things they change all the time, and
It's constant. It's hard to stay on top of it.
especially when your brain gets slower.
I got a question. At the end of the day, when you're leaving work to go home.
I've never made.
You left now, you're here.
Still working.
Yeah, on my phone. Somebody was complaining that one of the servers are
Do you
down.
ever shut your computer down? If you do, what's the last thing you want
I'm sorry if I shut it down.
on? You shut it down at the end of the day, or I don't know if you do or not, but if you do, what's the last thing you do on you before you shut it down?
I close all the applications down and then shut it down. Now, I have a laptop, so previously we would not shut them down. I would just log it off, not lock it, but log it off. Close all the applications and log it off.
In the beginning, you talked about being really busy with, cyber attacks. Could you give us examples of what you see? I mean, does it come from like the Russians, or do you know where it comes from? Or
So we have. The answer, yes, it's Russia, it's China, it's North Korea, Middle Eastern countries. So all of those that you would think are our enemies. But then there's also attacks coming from inside the United States because they are able to compromise a computer here. We have, thanks to a grant from MOSEP, we were able to buy some new firewalls, and what we're able to do with those is that we're able to block all traffic coming from anywhere other than the United States and Canada. So if you're not in the US or Canada, we don't even exist. So that helps out tremendously because we can see them when they're trying to probe the network. And there are constant attacks or looking to see if we're there or what do we have or whatever else. It's just when they get there, it just drops it. So another type of attack, and it's not going to be on the personal side, but this goes back to 2016 during the Alton Sterling protest. There were hacktivists. So these are the same type of people that came down here and started to protest, but they're doing it online. We worked with the state and the feds, and they were noticing some chatter that Baton Rouge was going to get attacked, and we were working with them. We were able to, they got us a couple days, but then when the big attack was supposed to happen, we were able to block it. And they were doing what's called a denial of service attack. So what that is that they flood your internet pipe with just garbage data. So then when you're trying to do legitimate work, it's basically the pipe is clogged up and you can't do your job. So we had police officers in MOSEP in the Overwatch looking at cameras all around that they couldn't get to the cameras at first because the network was basically the outside network was basically brought down. So we see that we haven't seen, well, after that, we put in protections against from that happening again. So you learn. But yeah, it's a lot from those countries, and it's a lot of ransomware, a lot of phishing attacks. We still, as with all the stuff that we have, I think we had 3 incidents working today where the team was, we were alerted of something suspicious on the network, and then the team is going out and taking a look at it and cleaning it or doing whatever we need to do with it. So,
So they can access through your TV also?
could, if you're, it all depends on what type of security you have. So if your Wi-Fi is using weak encryption methods and doesn't have a strong password, and you don't turn the password off on the outside, so somebody's looking at your Wi-Fi router from the outside, if they can hack that, then they can see inside your network and then they can jump. It's like, for me, I don't know how to do it, okay, but I'm not some 18-year-old kid in North Korea that just doesn't have anything to do and he's gonna mess with me, right? So